Keep your radio dial right here. You're locked into the hottest news station on the planet. Hot 702.5 in FM sound. Blazing today's hip hop, R&B, and pop music. Keeping your radio on fire. Bringing you the hottest, realest, riskiest talk shows live 24/7 on hot7025fm.com.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Hot 702.5 FM. Welcome to Laugh Therapy, the radio show that's all about bringing humor and healing to your day, elevating your mood and your mental one laugh at a time. Today we're delving into a topic that's both important and sensitive, the LGBTQIA plus community and its relationship with the church. We'll be exploring how the church's beliefs and actions can impact the lives of LGBTQIA plus individuals and how we can work towards greater understanding and acceptance. But don't worry, you guys are already familiar with how this show operates. Even if the conversation gets a little heavy or a little uncomfortable, we believe that laughter is the best medicine, even when discussing serious topics. So remember, this is a space for sharing, healing, laughing, and understanding, and that space can get a little crowded if we try and add our egos. So sit back, relax, and be ready to laugh and learn as we dive into this important conversation. I am your host, Jeaux King, and of course, I have my beautiful lady co-host,
Jay, aka Sunshine. I just want to say that was a great introduction. You did that. You did that.
Thank you, my love. Today I'm super excited about this topic because we have a very special guest whom I love very dearly. Her name is Carmen White-Yanek. Yes, and she is my godmother. I call her Auntie Carmen, though. She is my godmother and absolutely amazing. She is an ordained minister. So we're going to get into all of that. We were all raised Southern Baptist Christian. So we're going to get into how those beliefs intersect with our lives and how we are living them, because she is also the parent of an LGBTQIA plus member. And as you guys are familiar, I am a member as well of the LGBTQIA plus community. And she loves me dearly. I love her more than anything in this world, and I'm super excited to introduce you guys to one of my favorite members of my whole family, my Aunt Carmen White-Yanek. Are you with us, Aunt Carmen?
I am. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
I'm so excited.
I'm gonna have to say what Jess said. Listen, that intro was everything. I was over here. I was like, they can't see me, but I'm going, yes, that's my baby. She out here doing things.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for your support and your encouragement in everything that I do in life. So we were super excited that you said yes, of course, to coming on this episode, and I thought you'd be the perfect person to come on and share some of your, and hopefully we can encourage other people to know that there are different approaches when it comes to where your life, your livelihood, your family, and all of that intersects with your faith and your religion and how you navigate that. And I think that you're going to be a great person to share those experiences with. Can you start by telling us about your ministry and what led you to become a minister?
Okay, so I believe that I really felt called very early in my life. But one of the things that was problematic was I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't know anyone in my sphere of influence. I should say there's a caveat to that. There were people who I believe were called, but they were not ordained and they were not sanctioned by our church. It was, as you know, we grew up in our great grandfather's church, and I didn't know for decades that he actually in the 1950s had a woman minister sitting in the pulpit in Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in 1950s, y'all.
I didn't know that either. So our grandfather was pioneering.
Yeah.
And he was pioneering on a lot of different levels. And as the story has been handed down to me, she did not necessarily preach, but she would be able to teach and to pray and to read scriptures and stuff like that. But sitting in the pulpit in the 50s, that just was unheard of.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That was unheard of. And so I believe that I was called, and I think that just like coming out has many iterations, my calling has had many iterations. But I believe that I was called very early. I just had a different view about God and didn't know how to work that out. I mean, just because everyone else did not share. Shall we just put that way? And let me put this on. Let me put this phone on mute. I'm sorry, I did not put my watch on mute. Yeah, so don't be ding dinging on here. So so that my calling led me to, how do I do this in real time?
I think
Because
that's
I don't.
very. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just saying, because I didn't have the blueprint. It wasn't until I was in college. So when I went to school, I was 17. So my mama worked at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and there was a husband and wife chaplain team, and my mother had heard the wife speak at a luncheon, like a luncheon, and she told me, she said, "You have to come home and you've got to hear this woman." She said, "They keep saying that she's speaking, but I guarantee you she is preaching. So I'm gonna need you to come home and come
Yes.
to and come to and come to this banquet." And that's how. But my calling was, and is, has so many different iterations to it. And I had to lean in a way, and there was a lot of hurt with that and a lot of pain with that. And we can go on with that a little bit later, but you were getting ready to ask a question, Jordan. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that that's very relatable. I feel that a lot of people, especially as we grow up, it's like we learn to not ask questions in the church. Because as a child, you're taught to sit down and shut up when you're in the church. Be quiet. We're learning, things like that. And then as you get older and you start having the questions, I didn't feel like my questions were encouraged, if that if that makes sense. Because some of the stories
I
just
can
didn't
verify
resonate.
they were not.
Yeah, they were not
They
encouraged.
still not.
So I was like, I don't understand how this aligns with me, And then as times are changing, shouldn't the Bible also be changing? Because some of these beliefs don't, align with where we are today. And I had questions like that as young, I want to say as like 11 years old. And as you know, Aunt Carmen, I was a praise dancer. I've been praise dancing since I was 7 years old. And I was taught even at that age that dancing is a message, and it's a way of communicating with God, but also it's a message with the congregation. And navigating that at 11 years old, when you have questions about your faith, I don't know what I'm communicating anymore. So everyone I was getting invited to dance in all of these places, and I was like, but I still have questions. I get that you like that I'm dancing, but and I like this song. However, can we break down this song? Because I don't feel what it is that this song is saying, and y'all are falling out, or I don't understand this message and y'all are falling out. Like, can someone explain to me how this aligns with you? Because this feeling of this spirit that you are telling me that is supposed to be taking over me and is right here with me, I don't feel it. Like, am I the only spiritless one in here? And if so, like, how do I get it? So I had all of these questions that young, and I felt that they weren't encouraged. So I can definitely relate to some of the things that you were saying, where you were like, some of those things just didn't happen, in the church. I grew up with those questions. I don't know if you can relate, JD, but
The fact that you had those questions that early, I think that is amazing. That shows how your brain works. I mean, I didn't have those questions till I was well into my 30s.
Really?
And they still weren't encouraged.
No, I had questions very early on.
No, and I guess it's more bewildering for people to wonder why you have these questions when you've been in the faith for this long. All of your life, basically. Well, not basically, but all of your life. And now you have these questions after 30 years.
Right, and that was my argument.
Of being in the faith. So it was even
grateful.
harder to get my questions across now that I have. But you grew up, and you're just supposed to follow. You're supposed to do what you're told.
I won't necessarily say that that's how it was taught, but that's how I felt. So I was very glad when I moved to my grandfather's church. My grandfather's also a pastor, and I moved to his church at, I think I was like 16. And he encouraged my questions. At first, I could tell that I made him a little uncomfortable with the way that I was coming with the questions, because I had so many. Like, I've been holding these for 6 years, Papa. I need you to
firing off.
Yeah, I was like, I need
rapid
you to come
fire.
with it. Come with the answers. And I could tell he was a little overwhelmed, but I think he could tell that my brain was working so fast and that I was starting to lose faith. And he didn't want me to lose faith. So he took the time to start trying to answer the questions that he could. And then the ones that he could not, he just had to admit that he didn't have that answer. And I felt that it all fell back on the same thing. Most Christians fell back on, you just have to have faith. And I was like,
what
no,
is that?
wait. Yeah, I was like, wait, because now it says faith without action is dead. And how can you put action towards something that you don't believe in, like you don't understand, right? So I was like, this is where I have the issue. So that's all I was going to say. And Carmen, can you speak to like how have your experiences as a Black woman specifically shaped your journey of becoming a minister?
Ooh. So
Heavy.
checking into my Blackness has been a journey. As you well know, a little bit about my story, my background. I grew up in a military family, so I was everywhere. I can't even remember all of my addresses, because we were just, we were moving. My father was in the military, and so I think that part of that, I know for sure that part of that shaped my view of the world, that I had a world view. It shaped that tremendously. And I believe later on it also shaped my view of being able to not just tolerate, but learn and be aware of world religions. That's another thing. But how I've been shaped as a Black woman, I will tell you that today what I say is that Black women saved me.
All right.
Black women saved me. And what I mean by that is, growing up in the church, it was the Black women who encouraged me to speak, to use my voice. One, and very specifically, we call her Cookie Mills. I learned the word extemporaneous speaking from her, because she would say, this morning we're going to have 3 extemporaneous speakers. And I was like, yeah, what is that? She's like, and you,
Some
and
who?
you, some who, and you are one of them. And I was like, I'm going to need a definition. Like I was at the spelling bee. I'm going to need a spelling and a definition.
Context clue,
of
something.
Exactly. What she call me?
Yeah.
Something.
Excuse me, ma'am.
I don't think you're supposed to say
I
that
am
in
a child
church.
of God.
Right. And so I learned how to speak by a Black woman. And she encouraged my voice. However, like the Black church stays being the Black church, you can speak for Youth Day. You can speak in the back in the senior missions class. You can speak on Women's Day, but do not call yourself a preacher. So when I said that, when I spoke to our pastor at the time, when I told him that, he was like, oh, you're gonna have a hard way, that like that's just not. And I knew I couldn't stay there. So fast forward, I actually then joined another church, and it was that pastor, that particular clergy person that was at the base, the chaplain, Pastor Claudette Copeland. It was her who inspired me. And along the way came people like the late Bishop Iona Locke. The first time I heard her voice, I was like, who is that? And I was drawn to that because they were giving me and also the late Bishop Ernestine Cleveland Reams, but Reams is with an R. But what I had to understand, if these were these Black women, but I knew I didn't really want to do that. Like I didn't want to be in competition with Black men. I didn't want to do that. But I wanted to be genuinely myself. And so I had to check into who I was as a Black woman and what kind of Black woman did I want to be. And I had to then also even pare that down even further. What kind of Black woman preacher did I want to be? Because my background is in psychology. And so I'm more interested in how you think, how you move. What's the backside of the choices and decisions that you're making? How are you navigating this road? This is not new to you, Jordan. This is just how I
Right.
live. It's my everyday. And so I had to figure out how to include that, because what I was seeing was a almost it was their own very specific gifting, but I didn't want to mimic what I was hearing or seeing, and that meant that when I preached, I wasn't hooping. Can I hoop? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But that wasn't the forefront. So I wasn't in the back room trying to figure out how I was going to tune up when I got to this certain. I was like, is the psychology right? Am I asking questions because I wanted people to think? Because that's the thing that did not happen Sunday after Sunday. I called it that people would check their brains off at the door, just like you put your money in the offering plate. Somebody standing at the door, you put your brain there, then you come inside and somebody fills your brain, fills your head up with thoughts, beliefs, systems, ways of being, and then you go back home. And I was like,
You,
that's just not enough for me.
it's so crazy because I grew up in a non-denominational church, but my aunt was our pastor. So I didn't know women didn't belong in those or I won't say didn't belong, weren't allowed in
Encouraged.
or
Yeah.
encouraged or allowed in those spaces, because that is how I grew up. That is how I was raised. Like, my family, there were immigrants from Jamaica. I was like one of the first children born here in the United States of my family. So we were all very close knit. We were all we got, and we formed a church. We had a building, and my aunt, she took over. She was the pastor. I call her Past right now. She was the pastor, and she got into a relationship with another male pastor, and he took over. And things that he would say kind of put her down. So it's just all coming back to me on how it's treated, how women are treated within the pulpit. But we are so grateful to have you.
Absolutely. And for those of you who have always questioned, I know there are a lot of people from TikTok who are following me now, a lot of people from Instagram or just from the comedy scene who see me. And I get comments all the time about how my brain works. And I would just like to point out that this lady right here that we have on here is one of the main influences of why I was raised. I don't like saying I was raised by challenging women. I used to say I was raised by fighters. And even though we did enough fighting, I don't know another word to say. I was raised by women who challenged the norm. We had questions and we weren't afraid to ask them, like, hey, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's supposed to be that way. And it's just always been that way was not an acceptable answer for
Right.
us. It wasn't an acceptable
Right.
answer for my grandmother. It wasn't an acceptable answer for my aunts. It wasn't an acceptable answer for my cousins. Like, we were like, it's always been that way. That's not an answer. Why can't it change then? Why can't it be a new way? And that's why I operate the way that I do now. Because I'm like, I don't care how it's been. I'm here now and I feel like it should go this way. Why can't it? And when you were talking about psychology and your background in it and how we like to know how people's brains work, why did you make the decision that you made? What led to you thinking that that was the way to go? Kind of thing. I've always valued and appreciated the way that your mind works.
So speaking of challenges, what is the biggest challenge that you've had to face as a Black female in ministry, and how did you overcome it?
There's been many, and and one of them is not only the challenge of, I think that the greatest challenge has been with other women.
Ooh, I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Has been with and here's why. And this here's why is because of traditions, things that have been traded down to us as beliefs, as
The
thoughts,
mindsets.
and the mindsets. And so if if for 40 years of your life you have never seen a woman who was the pastor of the church, who was the bishop, who was a woman who came to speak but used the title of reverend or pastor, what if that has not been your in your sphere of influence. And also, let me just say this. I'm going to say it in a minute because I had a friend of mine to send me this quote because it's going to tie a lot of things in. And it's around how you see God. How you see God is how you see other humans. So if you categorize God, if as a Black person, you're still categorizing God as a white male with blonde hair and blue eyes, that person is always in a position of authority over you. And everything, and then we go back to how Christianity, okay, because I love history too, so I am that nerd for those of you who are listening. We go back to Christianity. For Black folks, colonized Christianity, it always places Black people under the foot of somebody, always in a place, always in a place of oppression and never in a place of superiority. And so you have these traditional roles. And so when a lot of women, their tension was around the fact that I was outside of a traditional role. And if I check into the fact that you're no longer in a traditional role, now I've got to start thinking about my own life. And I've got to start, I have to begin thinking about places that I find myself that I want to break out, but I'm afraid and I'm scared. And so all of those things go way back. If we start looking at the Pauline scriptures and the text, sacred text in this case, I'm meaning the Bible, because I will speak of sacred text, other books as sacred text. But in this case, the Christian Bible, we go in the Pauline text. It tells us, like, women need to ask, don't be asking no questions in the church. Ask your husband when you get home. Well, what if you don't have one of those?
I hope my stepdad is listening. He said the verse to me the other day and made me read it in a conversation.
Like, what if you don't have that? And so we use these antiquated texts and place it on something that is occurring today, and it doesn't align. It absolutely does not align. And so that was where a lot of the challenge came. I had plenty of challenge from men around, you out of place, you out of pocket. Now, can you come over here and sing? We want you to sing. That is so amazing. But we don't
teach
want
us nothing. Don't teach us nothing.
Stay in your lane. And I have to say that, I've not ever really been good at that, because if we go back to
none of y'all.
None of y'all. If you go back to my report card, I would guarantee you that my report card, Jordan's report card, and Allison's report card said the same thing. Does not work well with others.
But you got all A's.
Right. You know what I mean? But them grades on point. That's all that matters. The grades on point.
I was like, don't look at this side. Don't look at this side.
Yeah, don't look at the, where you got the E's and the S's and the U's.
Don't look at the U's and the N's. Don't look at that. But look at this side over here. I'm over here winning.
Exactly.
But that's where the tension, and that is still a tense place with women in ministry. And I very specifically want to use the word woman as opposed to female, because there are a lot of women who are not necessarily, particularly if we're talking about the community, that are not seen as females, but consider themselves and identify as women. So I want to say that. But yeah, that's where the tension came from. But it was between both men and women that had that had and have issues with not only me but just women in ministry, period, about how much you say and what you say and how you say what it is that you say. I'm just
And they can't tell you
unapologetic.
nothing.
Yeah, I'm just unapologetic about it now, because I've had to grow into my voice,
Mm.
and that's an important point to make. Growing into your voice, you can have a voice at 7, but growing into the power of that voice, it may take us a while. And it took me a while to grow into that voice to be able to speak unapologetically about what I believe.
I
I
get
love
that.
that. I
I
love
get
that.
that. All right,
Okay, so
guys,
we're
it's
gonna.
time to segue into the portion of the conversation that I know all of you guys have been waiting on, getting into the community part. I
Mm,
believe just you
Yeah.
had that
Okay, so yeah,
first.
we're gonna pivot a little bit. So, how
yes.
do you balance your role as a minister with your personal life and your responsibilities as a parent or a familiar role model?
Well, one, my spouse, when he met me, that's who I was.
Mm.
So he doesn't know me outside of that. He doesn't know me out of, and we've been together this year 34 years. 30,
Congratulations.
almost 35.
Ooh,
And
that's
so
love,
thank you.
y'all.
And we'll be married 32 in December. So he doesn't know me outside of that. In fact, the very first time he came to our church, I was at the mic. So he doesn't know me. He doesn't know me outside of that. And my family, my immediate family, Jordan can tell you. I mean, my family, I have been the go-to person for quite some time in our family, in terms of, when people are in crisis or when they're not, when they're making decisions for their lives. And so that balance of that is, I've had to know very specifically who I am and who I am not. And to be able to say, now I'm balancing it all with rest too, that um, part of me being able to continue is that I have to rest. And so sometimes I have to say, I don't have it today. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that I don't want to be with my family, but it does mean that I have to have time to restore and recharge, so that I can be of service, when I'm called upon. But yeah, that's my balance, is that I've learned how to, um, lovingly say no.
Boundaries.
Absolutely, 100%.
Hmm.
I think that was something I had to learn. The lovingly part, because I had no problem saying no, but the the how to say it lovingly part, because I get overwhelmed or overstimulated quickly, and then it
Hmm.
comes across aggressively, or like I have an attitude or I'm irritated with the person that I'm speaking to, when in reality I'm just overstimulated and I can't take what it is you're trying to feed me right now. So
Hmm.
it's still a work in progress right now for me. But and Carmen, can you tell us a little bit about your experience for being a minister when one of your children came out as transgender?
And I'll go back to something very quickly. There, just like I said, my calling has many iterations. So did our child's coming out. And so coming out, at 16, um, as gay, at a private Catholic school. And there was a reason why our child said, I cannot stay at this school, and moved to a public school, in their junior year, which our school district was like, yeah, we don't really do that. And Jaden was the only one, that was allowed to go to that school in their junior year and excelled there, did exceptionally well. But when they left their undergrad, I was seeing some things happening in their undergrad, in Jaden's undergrad, and I wasn't quite clear about what was happening, and Jaden wasn't at the place where they were ready to speak of that yet. But when they got to Austin is when the transitioning began to take place, and I didn't know about it I didn't know about it at the time. So January 2020 is when that came about. And I will back up to say, I have never once in my life, in almost 40 years of ministry, I have never once in my life preached against same gender loving people. Not once. Not once. Not once have I spoken against same gender loving people, because I held that because I had a completely different mindset around it and perspective, and I was viewing it differently than a lot of people, because I was around when AIDS overtook the community. And I had far too many people that I adored, one of them being one of my very best friends in the world. And because he is an ancestor, I will speak his name, Tom Epperson. And he passed me right before I had Jaden. And it just never made sense to me. It never made sense to me that a loving God then damns all of these children to hell. It never made sense. So it just never made it just never made sense. It just logically it never made sense. And so I've held that as a belief. And so when Jaden came out as transgender, when Jaden said, I'm transitioning, that was not the difficult part for me. The difficult part for me was the name change. The name change was the most difficult part for me, because I'm thinking about what we went through, the time that we spent in giving them their previous name. And so when Jaden set me straight, because I listen, we raised our kids this way, and Jaden set me straight, and I will never forget this. I literally, I don't know if you even know this, Jordan, I had locked myself in my bedroom for 9 days. I didn't speak to nobody.
Oh, wow.
It was a kind of metamorphosis that I had to go through to completely integrate all of it into myself. And I just couldn't do that on a dime. And it wasn't about the acceptance of my child, because there was nothing absolute, and we've told our kids this, there's nothing that you can do that's going to separate you from me. It's just not ever going to happen. There's nothing that you can do. I've told Jordan this. There's nothing that
I've told my kids that. I've repeated it.
There's nothing that you can do or say. There may be things that will piss me off momentarily, and momentarily may last a week. I'm just saying. We're going to be 100% transparent. However, there's nothing that's going to last a lifetime for me and beyond that, something that you can do or say that's going to change that. But Jaden shifted me all the way around by saying, this don't have anything to do with you. And that was like I'm like, wait, what you mean this don't have nothing to do with me? But that walk was a tightrope walk. And I was wobbly, not going to lie about it. I was wobbly, but that particular thing, that statement, I held on to that. And I need to let that roll around a few times. And it did until I got it. And it was like, no, this don't have anything to do with you. This is about my life and how I have to live my life. And I could not, there was nothing that I could say to that would be like, that actually made sense, because no, I raised you like this. I raised you to live full out. And this is a part of you living full out. I am stepping back and let you step fully into the sun and shine.
I think that's where a lot of parents make their mistake in learning news like this, is they have this plan for their child and how they're supposed to live and conduct themselves and be. And oh my God, you're not following that plan anymore. You just messed everything up that I had planned for you, or on who I want you to be, when not realizing that this is not your life. This is my life as the child. And I want to be who I am comfortably without worrying about what anyone is thinking. And if I can't be comfortable around my parents, who can I be comfortable around? And that is
the automatic people who are supposed to love me for who I am.
Yeah,
for the rest
no matter
of my
what.
life don't accept
Right.
me. I can see how that could be traumatic. I think we had a conversation the other day where I told you I think that I could relate to that. I would never want to make my children feel like they couldn't come home, or that they weren't accepted, or that they weren't loved. It's always going to be that you can come home. You can talk to mommy about anything. I don't care if you're 45 years old. I may not like it. I may not like what you're talking about, but I will always appreciate and be here because you're talking to me. However, as a parent, just me personally, I was telling JD the other day, if one of my children came out as transgender, or came out as gay, I was like, I'm in a bisexual relationship. I'm in a lesbian relationship currently. I can't judge them, be upset, or anything like that. That's hypocritical, and I don't view it as anything wrong in the first place. However, if one of my children came out as transgender, I don't think that I would condemn the fact that they're transgender, but I think personally as a mom, my feelings, I would need some time. My feelings would be hurt because I raised my son, or I raised my daughter, right? And to me, it's not that you're telling me that you want to be someone. Be everything that you want to be. Be anything that you want to be. I don't care if you want to be it, okay? However, I raised my daughter and I raised my son, and you're asking me to say goodbye to that person. A lot of people that are transgender call like the name before the dead name, or like that person's dead, I am now this person, but I loved that person. I have to grieve that person. To me, as a parent, it's not that I don't accept who you are today or who you are coming into. However, I still have to grieve the death of said name. I have to grieve the death of, this is a transformation for you, and I accept you. I love you. However, I have to acknowledge the fact that it hurts that I am saying goodbye to my daughter or to my son, because my son is my daughter, or my daughter is my son, or whatnot. I think that would be the part that I would need some time to wrap around emotionally. Not accepting my child, that's not it. Not, condemning my child, that's not it. Just the grief of a parent having to say goodbye to who I knew you to be, who I raised before this point, right? Or who I thought you were up to this point. I don't think it's I want you to change or stay that way. If you're not comfortable in your own skin, if you don't identify with this person, then by all means, I get it, son. I get it, daughter, be you. But I would need to grieve that person.
You have to.
For me personally.
You have to, and that's what those 9 days were about. That was about me. That was about me grieving, and I can just tell you, just like the physical death of the physical transition of a human, and you want to call out their names, like you want to audibly say it. There's not a day that goes by. You've heard people say there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about them. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about my child that I raised. But I had to even go back and see glimpses and flashes of times where, oh, that's why that was difficult. Oh, that's why this was happening. Oh, that's why this full-on breakdown happened in the dressing room when I was trying to get you to wear X, Y, and Z, and that just wasn't working. And it made me go back. But I agree. No, I definitely had to. It definitely was a grieving process.
So we learned how you initially reacted to the news of Jaden's transition. What about when Jaden first came out? What was you guys' initial reaction?
When Jaden said, I said, first of all, I knew it, and I was waiting to be told. And and there would be things that would occur, like I would get up in the middle of the night because I would get a sense, oh, you're thinking about unaliving yourself.
Oh, wow.
I would go and then stand at Jaden's door and just pray. Not on my watch, and not because of that. And so it took a lot of just talking through. We neither one of us had an issue, and neither did the siblings, because and I would just tell Jaden all the time, that's not my story. That's not my story to tell. That was not my story to tell. And if your grandparents are gonna know, you gonna tell them. I'm not gonna do that. Jaden's grandmother, my spouse's mother, left this world. I think she knew, but she was never told. And I think that there's something. I think that there's something holy. I'm going to use these words. I think that there's something holy and divine about holding your truth from those that you know cannot handle that truth, and that then will serve you back up something that is harmful and devastating to you. So I think it's something holy. Now some people would say, well, you're not telling the truth. Yes, I am. Because the most important person that you tell the truth to is yourself. And everyone cannot hold the story of your heart. Everyone does not have the courage, will not rise up to meet you in that space. And so there was no issue, because I really knew before I even had children, and that can be verified. Y'all both can ask Allison. She will tell you that I told her, I know that one of my children is going to be gay. I already know it.
Wow.
I said that before I got married, and I said that before I had children.
She's like, somebody told me, I feel it in my bones. Did your religious beliefs play a role in how you approached the situation, or approached Jaden coming out or transitioning?
I think more than anything, I considered the beliefs of everybody else, because I did not hold the beliefs of all gay folks was going to hell. I didn't ever hold that as a truth for me. And so my actions and my behaviors lined up with that. And so I wasn't shying away from people that sang with me in community choirs, who I knew were gay and who also had HIV, who were HIV positive or had full-blown AIDS. I didn't shy away from being around them or going to visit them when they were in the hospital in their last days. I did not shy away from sitting next to them in service, all the things. So I didn't have that. So that wasn't a struggle for me. The struggle was with other people, and I let them be in that struggle.
Okay, so how has your relationship with your child changed since they came out as transgender?
I think that we have a closer relationship. I mean, number one, my child has my entire face, and they will tell you that they have my entire
Twins.
face. How many more minutes do we have? 10?
10.
Okay. Jaden has my entire face. She is light-skinned me. And
Facts, I can confirm.
and so it bonded us in such a way. We have been bonded their entire life, differently than the others. But I have my own relationship with all four of our kids. But it tightened our relationship because we had such a great understanding, and I have a better understanding of who my child is. And I love Jaden even more because Jaden stood toe to toe with me and was like, what you not getting ready to do is undo me, because you have unfinished work, emotional work to do.
Say it for the people in the back.
right.
No,
Oof.
repeat that. Repeat that.
I will repeat it, that what Jaden said in effect to me is that what you're not going to do is undo me, because you have undone emotional work that you need to do. That's on you. That's not your trauma. I'm not taking that on. You're going to have to deal with your own trauma,
That's real.
your own family pathology. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. And so I took that, and I said, you're one of the most brilliant people that I know. And I was so grateful, because that was grace extended to me. My child did not have to extend that grace, but they did. So grace was extended to me in that manner, to hear that, and see it from their perspective. And then how do I integrate it into my own life, so that I can be a better person, I can be a better human. And I also can love my child fully and completely, the way that they deserve to be loved.
Can you just give us the little tip of the iceberg of what was some of that work that you did internally after Jaden said that to you?
I start stripping things away off of myself. Like I started looking at how do I really, how do I see, what did I not see? How did I miss my child? So, and what was I so involved in that I could miss the essence of my child? And so I started doing the work of, okay, let's talk about mindset. Where there are pockets of tradition that are still left inside of me that I didn't know until certain things came up, right? So then I started looking at those pockets of traditions. It's like, do I really believe that? No, I do not. You got to go. Do I do is what I'm saying and what I'm believing lining up with my actions? Have they been integrated? In some things I could say yes, in others I had to say no. Okay, that's not integrated yet. How do I do that? Let's walk it back. How have I loved myself? Have I loved myself completely? The answer to that was no. So how have I loved myself less? And how does it show up? And so I started walking myself back through that kind of cycle to actually get out of it, so I could actually be who I really knew myself to be, and who I really wanted to become. But I had to step into that fully. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, is that Black women saved me. One of the questions that you talked about, who has influenced you? Every Sunday morning, you can find me at 7 a.m. I'm in my pajamas, but I'm on Pink Robe Chronicles. It is a very life-affirming space, not only for me as a Black woman preacher woman, but also, I don't even really use preacher so much anymore. I use the word healer now, because that's the other iteration. So I get that now. And so I'm there because it is a community of black folks who understand that God is way bigger than what we have ever taught or thought about. And the expansiveness of God is so inclusive that it can include all of the letters, LGBTQIA plus. It can include all of it, non-binary siblings. We have all of that inside of PRC. And so it was those Black women who saved me. There were other sacred texts. I have a stack of books over here that I was going to talk about. But I have a stack of books. I had to read my way into, research my way into expanding, so that anytime someone came across my path, they felt welcome. And they really
so
felt
powerful.
And they really felt welcome.
I love that. What advice would you give to other parents who may be struggling with similar situations with their children coming out, or whether it be transitioning or just gay?
My advice is number one, just like Jaden told me, this is not about you. It's not about your parenting. You did not fail as a parent. Now I can't say that because some people, their children would say, "Oh no, nigga, yes they did," but
Yeah, you failed. Right. You
you
did
failed
F
me.
minus.
F
But
minus
that's
minus.
not why I'm gay. It's
Right.
not
And
because
it's
you
that's not
failed.
that's not why.
It,
But being able to look at turn the mirror in.
mm,
It's the interview that you need to look at. It's the inside that you need to look at so that you can love honestly, authentically, and completely. And that love may look differently for your child than what it has looked like for you. So we can't place how we have been dealt with as children onto our own. And so I would say start with yourself and then listen to your child. Don't interrupt them when they're trying to tell you, when they're speaking to you about what's happening for them. In it, be in, and don't bogart your way into their life. Be invited. And
ooh,
sometimes and sometimes sometimes that invitation takes a minute because you're I learned this from Jaden too, is that I want to be a safe space for my children. And if I'm not safe, if I'm not safe, I then that is the reason why. If you say, well, they didn't tell me because they didn't feel safe enough to tell you. They went to all the other people because they didn't feel safe enough to tell you. And so
man.
you have to ask yourself, why am I not a safe space for my child?
I love that so much, and I hope there are people who are listening to this and ingesting it. No, I wasn't. I wasn't speaking to anyone in specific. I just hope this reaches someone who is
Yes.
in this space of confusion about what they should do next or how they should treat their child. I just hope that they can at least just hear that part. If you didn't hear nothing else, that is the main takeaway from today.
Yes, laugh therapy. I hope that y'all got your laughs in and got your smiles in with us as well as you got your therapy. I have one last question for you, Miss Carmen, before we get off. Aunt Carmen, before you get off, y'all can Miss Carmen her. She's my auntie.
Mine too. Mine too.
I was like, let me adjust that. Would you change anything about your choices to support or how you have chosen to support your child in their transition?
The only thing that I would shift would be to ask first, what does support look like to you? Because what support looks like to me is not what support looks like to my child. And conversely, what love looks like to our children, if you're there and you're trying to figure out, well, I do love my child. Here's the thing, if they cannot articulate that for themselves, something is missing. Therefore, you need to ask your child, what does love look like to you? What does it feel like? What does it generate on the inside of you? When I say that I love you, can you trust that? Do you believe that? And can I, as a parent, honor that? Because once I get the feedback from my child, then I need to honor that. So that's what I would shift, is asking from the beginning, what does support look like? And you said something about ego at the beginning, Jordan, and I would say that you've got to relieve yourself of your ego. And your ego sounds like this: well, I did do that. You're always fighting to be right. I did do that. I did say that. No, I didn't. I didn't do that. And that was a lot of the conversation in those 9 days. When I would talk to, I was trying to hold on to my role, my space, and none of that mattered to my child. And so that fighting for your right to be, You're gonna have to check that. You're gonna have to check that at the door. You're gonna have to check your ego at the door and be wide open, and you're gonna actually have to take it.
I think that's what scares a lot of people. They have to strip themselves.
You
You
do.
have to be completely vulnerable to hear things about yourself that you didn't know.
And it's
All
uncomfortable.
right, and Carmen, we are running out of time here. So
Okay.
before that happens, tell the people where they can find you. Where can they follow you? How can they support you?
Well, I am on all the socials except for Snapchat. My children said no about that, so I'm on TikTok. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And here's the thing: if you're a parent or a child that's out there and you want further conversation with me, you can email me at cwhitejanak@gmail.com. That is cwhitejanak@gmail.com. And I would love to honor you in that way if you have additional questions, or want to have additional conversation. But that's where you can find me.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank
you
you
so much for
so
joining us
much.
today, Aunt Carmen. And thank you guys for tuning into Laugh Therapy. Remember,
for
you guys
having
can
me.
catch us right here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we can't wait to hear what it is you guys have to say about this conversation. Again, thank you so much, Carmen. And we will catch you guys next week at 4. Over and out.